I'm going to just start with, I have more questions that we can answer in this period of time, but I'm going to start with some that I highlighted, and then one or two of the panel members can decide which one you're going to answer. Okay, so the first one is, and I thought this was a good one because that's one that I would have myself, is I have firewalls, Norton, malware, software, etc. to support my network. Isn't that enough? So who wants to answer that? All right.
The answer is no. You need to have multiple layers of security. And in the old days, you just thought you needed a firewall, antivirus on your endpoint, and that's not enough. There are many products and many services that can provide security. But at the end of the day, the last line of security is always going to be the human. The person needs to be trained, and companies need to train and educate your users. That's more important than any defense mechanism you have, because you can have a large company, Sony or Fullerton with millions of dollars in budget of cybersecurity equipment, but they still get hacked and breached. And how are they done? It's because it's something that a person did, knowingly or unknowingly, or they would do in the doing that gets them in. And for a hacker to hack any company, it's very, very easy, alarmingly easy.
So in addition to that, there's 3 states of data. Basically, you've got, better, okay, sorry. Carry with CNI. So there's 3 states of data. You've got at-rest data, which is sitting on your laptop or your workstation. You have your data center information that you've passed to the data center. And then you have your in-transit data. So you really have to address all 3 aspects of that data and protecting that data. So one of the pieces that as we go through our daily lives at work, you will have to log into your phone and multiple layers of security there. Your laptop's encrypted. You send your information to a data center. I don't know if anybody's ever done a data center tour, but it's like getting into Fort Knox. They're extremely secure. The piece that is very often disregarded or forgotten about is that in transit or in flight data that we also have to make sure that we're covering. That's not covered by your Nortons and your antivirus type of software.
Okay. I'll keep going because you'll have other chances to answer. But that brought me to this other question: is when we're talking about our employees, how can you make sure that employees are practicing safe internet skills?
A big whip?
Besides a big whip. Anything else?
So again, as Roberto said, training is really that biggest component of it, and making sure that it's incorporated in not just an annual environment, but really it should be an ongoing process. So there should be certifications that you're actually providing to your employees along the way, so that you're really documenting that they have those skills, and then also taking some of the control away from them. A lot of organizations have really built out kind of a bring your own device type of architecture, especially if they're not in the enterprise and don't want to make that capital investment of actually controlling all the hardware that's being connected to their network. And that basically opens up a whole new threat vector. So making sure that you have at least an authorization with your employees that you're able to shut down and wipe their devices clean if there is a compromise, if they lose it in an airport, and things along those lines, as well as making sure that you actually have encryption software installed, and so they're authenticating themselves every time they're actually accessing their data.
Okay, now along with that, there's a lot of remote workers. So when an employee is working remotely at a coffee shop, or like you mentioned at an airport, how can they protect their data?
So again, it really comes into having that encryption capability and having software secured, and not providing them access if they're not with a secure connection. So there are ways around that. The traditional architecture would be to set up a VPN a virtual private network that connects that endpoint directly into your system, and it really shelters and encrypts that traffic as it's going over a public internet connection. But there are definitely a couple of different ways to do it.
Yeah, and then one other thing that you can do is have your block screen on it. So like you can't see it from certain angles. You know, especially if you're at Starbucks and stuff, I can't tell you how many people are in there like, woo, here's what I got going on. And you're looking over going, wow, there's the financials of some, $80 million company. And people don't realize that, bad people are everywhere and they're taking pictures of your stuff. So if you got that's a $5 fix, right? So if you got laptops or your people have got laptops, you just put that and put it on your cell phone too. Because what is 90% of the people under 35? You guys did it, right? You're on your phone. If you don't, I bought my kid a block screen on his phone so that people can't see what he's doing.
Anything else? Anybody want to add to that? Okay. Now, has anybody ever been a victim of cybersecurity, like opened an email that had something in it and
You all have.
No one
Don't
has.
you lie.
Okay.
You're all lying.
You guys don't need to be here. Okay, so yeah, I think most of us have, and you may or may not be aware of it. But what can a company do when that happens? What are the first steps that they should take?
I'll do the simple answer and I'll get into the complicated answer. There's two possibilities. Either you know you've been hacked or you don't, right? So if you know, obviously, whatever device that you were hacked on, you need to immediately shut it off, right? You need to shut it off, and the hack can happen so quickly. Either over the phone or you just innocuously click on something. And instantly, it immediately creates a tunnel back to the hacker, and then they get alert that, hey, this is now alive when he starts doing the bad stuff I want to do. So, and then if you know that's the case, then you need to go back and go to a clean computer and immediately reset the passwords on all your accounts and make sure that you have multi-factor authentication or a token on every account that you have. Whether this happens to you or not, you should do this right now after this talk. Any account that you have online, anywhere, especially if it involves money with banking institution, make sure you turn on multi-factor authentication to your cell phone, to your cell phone, or in all those things. So in the cases where you don't know, that's going to be a bigger problem because you're probably going to get solicitations and the effects of that afterwards. But if you do know, those are the immediate first steps you need to take.
So there's a threat vector called a man-in-the-middle attack. If you are setting up a multi-factor authentication, do not text it to yourself. It is super easy to actually scan somebody's SIM card on their mobile device, and that makes another phone act as your phone. So it's receiving any information that you're getting. You want to make sure if you are setting up two-factor authentication, send it to something that's behind a password encrypted firewall, which would be your email, hopefully one that's secure. Additionally, if you're currently configured so that your email is running off of your same web hosting platform and it's not being provided by a provider such as G Suite or Microsoft Office 365 or even better M365, which is their mobile security suite, that you move off of that. There's a scripting language called PHP, which is what websites run off of. If you have a WordPress site, PHP is really easy to basically take control, and that's where hackers will end up moving your email and pretending to be you. So make sure that you actually have something that's got at least the TTLS type level of encryption where you're sending your multi-factor authentication request to.
I think that the biggest thing that we can do as enterprise companies is to have a cyber security plan in place, right? That outlines exactly what the steps are if you feel like you have been hacked. And I'm going to go as far to say that the majority of the companies that we work with do not have such a plan, right? And it doesn't matter how large or small your corporation is. If you're processing credit cards, if you're collecting any kind of customer data, you have a responsibility to that end user. So you need to know what your responsibility is from a communications perspective. There are regulations that say if you have been hacked as an enterprise, you have a responsibility to inform folks that have potentially been affected by such a hack. So, and then lastly, there are a myriad of third-party companies that can come in and do an assessment, whether it's prior or post cyber hack, to let you know what's been leaked, what your at-risk issues are, and can help you address those issues.
Yeah, and just from the loss risk assessment that we do, one of the things that, from an insurance standpoint, is that if you're not following your plan and you leave your device on or you're doing something stupid with it still, you could actually get excluded from coverage on some of your things if you don't follow your plan. So like the three other guys said, you gotta have a plan, you gotta train, and then you gotta have your people follow through. Because again, the human factor is the bottom line.
Just one more point to add, since the original question, I believe, was how can you do this in advance? And as Roberto said, you're probably already compromised. Most attacks exist within your system for an average of 7 months before they'll actually activate. So they're sitting there just passively collecting your data, looking for additional entry points in areas to corrupt your systems and exfiltrate data. So definitely take those remediation steps. You know, immediately. There's actually a really very recent and timely local incident. Woodridge Medical Facility here in Southern California just recently got shut down. So they reacted to all their patient medical records were compromised, and they're going out of business now as a result of it. So again, they didn't follow their own plan, and their insurance didn't cover it, and they were entirely financially on the hook for all the mitigation costs.
Okay, so the financial aspect of what can happen to a business if they're a victim of cyber crime. Can you speak more on that, Tim? Like what kind of protection can a company have financially?
Sure. So when cyber liability insurance first came out and started really making some headway about 7-8 years ago, it was very limited in scope because nobody really understood how to write it yet because it was still fresh and new. And when it first came out, you could get insurance coverage for like notification of the people that had gotten hacked, right? That's the little note in the mail that says, hey, you know, Yahoo's been hacked. We're going to credit monitor you for, 12 months, things like that. And that's a financial burden that if you don't have this coverage, you're talking about anywhere from $75 to $125 per hack, right? Per record that's been hacked. So if you're a hospital and you've got, I don't know, 1 million records, well, you better have a big giant insurance policy. If you're somebody smaller, somebody under than 50,000, records, you're out of business if you don't have this insurance, because even 100 or 10, how many of you guys can write a check for 10 grand today and not have it have a financial burden to you? And right now, cyber liability coverage now has 7 different layers of coverage inside of these policies, and depending on how many records you have, I've got insurance quotes out right now that are $2 grand for this, for $50,000, $75,000 or 75,000 records. It's enormously cheap right now. So if you think you can go write a check for $1 million, fine, self-insured, save your 3, 4, 5 grand. But if you've got, say, 600,000 records, like a couple of my clients do, that are secondary market ticket sellers, they've got whatever they can afford. I've got a guy now that's been buying this for 7 years. When we first wrote it, he had 4 layers of coverage, and it was $60,000. Now he's got 7 layers of coverage at 5 times the value. He's paying 27. So half the cost what he was buying for 6, 7 years ago. So code. That's the easiest way to protect yourself, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. Because now the hackers are starting to get into the smaller guys, and then calling you up and say, haha, I have your stuff, send me 50 Bitcoin, right? And here's the thing, everybody hears, oh, Yahoo got hacked, oh, these guys got hacked. What you don't hear about is the 300 a day that do get hacked, that nobody knows about, and they're writing a check.
I'd like to share a statistic with you guys, and if anybody wants this, it's from the government, I'll send it to you guys afterwards. So the number of complaints reported in 2018 is 1,500,000 and change. The total losses on those complaints reported is 7.4 billion. That's just what's reported. And in 2014, the reported amount was 800 million. So it went up like almost tenfold in 4 years of time. So, and what Tim said is right. It is the targeting of small businesses is very high. In this report, 43% of the targets are small businesses. So don't think that they're just going after the big companies. It's easier to target small businesses.
And one of the things about the way that hackers approach things is, unlike you guys, they don't move on. So everything that they've ever done, they're still doing today. They're just layering on additional types of attacks and looking for those vulnerabilities, which is why having an AI-based and authenticated type of a threat detection software as part of your layered security is really important in that area. Going back to the losses, I mean, I think the last statistic that I read through CompTIA was 67% of small businesses really are not prepared to be able to handle a cybersecurity attack. And the average time to go out of business after one has been enacted is 3 months. So that clock is ticking.
Okay, thank you. So I hear that we should have a cybersecurity plan in place. How often should we be auditing our cybersecurity plan?
All the time?
That's exactly the correct answer. So unfortunately, small businesses do not do the audit. They're more worried about auditing their financials and whether an employee is coming in on time or targeting or doing their time clock or something like that. But how often has a small business said, oh, I got my computer auditor coming in and just checking sure that everything is up to date, all the patches, that there's no weird stuff going on. You will be surprised how, I don't want to say the word offended by, but I think some small businesses are really naive to the fact that something can be there and they don't believe it or they're in denial. And that's how we're in trouble.
And I would even say, just because you may not understand all of this doesn't mean that the people that are coming after you don't. So, really, again, going back to that employee training and creating that as part of your culture, that, we're going to make sure that we're aware and prepared and that we have a plan in place. Really, that's a leadership issue, and it's no longer just IT.
Again, part of that cybersecurity plan obviously needs to incorporate audits. A quick anecdote, we were working with a major financial, I will not say who it is, but we've got a lot of networking gear with a major financial who was using firewalls, and they then looked at Sienna for layer 1 encryption, which we can get into at a later point, or networking afterwards. Came to find out that the last time that they had changed the keys on their firewalls had been 7 years ago, and this is a Fortune 25 enterprise financial company. They had 4 different directors of IT and security since they had put those keys in place. So, needless to say, they were way behind. But I think, at least quarterly to do an assessment on your cybersecurity plan, where you're at from a coverage perspective, and I'm going to say that that's probably not even frequent enough. It comes down to the number of employees you have and the focus, but in the long term, in the long run, it's going to pay off to make sure that you're constantly better. Our company is very diligent about it, and I received an email a couple of weeks ago from our HR department, and it said that an employee had recognized me for some contribution to click on a link for a $25 coffee card at Starbucks. I did it.
It was Starbucks.
And I immediately realized what I had done. And it was, thank God it was internal, but I sent my boss a note immediately and said that I was sure that he had turned me in for this accolade. But, that's another way to protect, is to have that sort of internal training, what to look for, but also, be constantly diligent about keeping your employees up to speed on it.
I add one last comment about auditing. No one has issues with audited financials, right? Especially for money related. But people don't think about an independent third-party auditor. So the worst thing you can have, depending on the size of the organization, is to have your own people audit their own work. That's meaningless, because in some companies we've seen the incompetent IT persons, they'll tell their boss everything's always okay, right? And nothing's ever wrong. And in fact, that's not the case, because they're hiding their stuff. So if any of you owners want to have your own stuff audited and your own people are giving you runarounds, then that's a red flag right there, and you have to bring in the third party.
Okay, thank you. So when we go all back to our offices, and we're going to wonder, oh, well, are we infected and we don't know? What kind of tools are available to know where are we right now? Are we currently a victim of cybercrime and we don't even realize it? Like, what are the tools that a company can use to check that?
Get a third-party independent company to come in and do that. I mean, really, there are tools that you can utilize, but if the threat already exists in your system, oftentimes that's already too late, even if it is detected. They may be able to remove it, they might be able to routine it, but if you're not an expert, you're not really going to know how to go about doing that. So definitely, engage that. Even if it's as simple, and I hate to say this, but take your laptop, if that's all you're using. Take it down to Best Buy and have the Geek Squad check it out. They may not be the most competent, but at least that's something better than what you would be able to do.
Yeah, it's just to kind of pile on, just anybody else take a look at your stuff, because like what Rob was saying, if you have your own internal people doing it, they're just going to say, oh, everything's fine and dandy, not a problem, because they don't want to look like an idiot, right? None of us do. But if you take it to Geek Squad, they might call you an idiot, but these things happen. But at least they're going to give you an honest assessment of what you've got going on, right? And you can hire some third party, they're going to come in, it's going to take a couple of days for a quote, a couple of days for you to approve it, and it's going to be $5,000. They take it down to Geek Squad, it's done this afternoon, and it's a couple $100. So those are very simple, straightforward things if you only have one laptop or one or two devices.
Okay, thank you. Can you explain, how does phishing actually steal my data?
Well, you give it to them. I mean, just like Carrie did. Carrie clicked on a link, man. That's the whole thing, because a lot of what these guys are doing when you phish, and if you're getting an email, you click on a link and you go to hottopics.com instead of hot topic, right? What they're doing is they're going to say, hey, we want your username and a password. Well, how many of you guys have the same exact username and same password for multiple different websites? I mean, everybody does. Because passwords are pain in the butt, and you want to, do the same thing, right? So what they're doing is they're going to take that username and password, and then once they're in, they're going to hack through your browser history. Trust me, they can do it. They're going to hack through their browser history. Oh, Amazon. Oh, you go here. Oh, you go here. Oh, you like Manolo Blahnik shoes. Great. I need 5 pair in a size 13. Right? They're going to do that because now they have all your information. And it's not they're stealing it from you, and then you're going to run it up on the credit card, right? And then you go to Visa and it says Visa, okay, none of these charges are right, but now you're 10 grand deep and it's a pain in the butt to fix it, right?
And then also, phishing isn't necessarily just clicking on a link. There are other ways that people are kind of doing identity theft. And what we're seeing, one of the most pertinent current attack strategies is they are basically spoofing emails from employees that work within your organization and really kind of understanding what the org chart, utilizing LinkedIn to figure out, okay, who's in what department, and then sending CFOs or the controller an email saying, go ahead and wire $25,000 to this account.
Right, now you're talking spear phishing,
Right,
right?
we're talking spear phishing. Right? So, there's broad-based phishing, which is kind of that link attack, right? It's the low-hanging fruit. But then there's also that identified specific attack where people are going after specific individuals and pretending to be somebody else. And there's a lot of different ways that like that.
Yeah, so I got a client that was actually spear phished a year ago. Now here's where it gets nutty and kind of crazy. Spear phishing, as soon as that human element is involved, now you no longer have insurance for that. Okay? So if they spear phish it, the human approves it and says, hey, I'm going to go transfer you all this money, you no longer have that insurance capability. Until just recently, they're just starting to now insure for that. There's a bigger premium for it, but now you've got to do 2 and 3 factor authorization for this, because I've got a client locally that had gotten spear phished. Fortunately, we were able to recover, but only half the funds, and they were out 30 grand because they got spear phished because the owner had been, not in town, was out of the country. Somebody spear phished the CFO. The HR person confirmed with the president, came back and they sent out the first one. They said, haha, I got you for 25 grand. I'm going to go for the big money now. Went to the 30 grand. They freaked out, called me. We got people involved, and they were actually able to recover the second transfer.
So, in my example of the $25 Starbucks gift card, what would have happened had that had been a true hack is the most common would be a Trojan that is installed on my computer, right? And then with that Trojan software, there's all kinds of different things that they can do. We talked about email spoofing, which literally mirrors the company's domain, and it literally looks like an internal email. And there's all kinds of access that they have that way. But if I have a Trojan running on my laptop, they have access to all of my files, all of my data, the information that I'm sending and receiving. So that's genuinely the most common and how it happens. And then they've gotten to the point where if I've detected that I have a Trojan on my machine and I go to delete it, there's an exe file that they've created that will reinstall it. There's no way for me, without taking it to a third party, to literally clean that machine. It will continually reinvent itself.
One more thing too is another threat vector is actually text messages. If you get text messages from anybody that you don't recognize, don't respond to them. The second that you actually send a reply text, there's AI out there that can actually crawl over 700 different publicly available databases, and they can put together an entire profile of you in less than a second and a half. That covers how much your actual net worth is, what asset ownership structure looks like, any business interests that you have, all of your social media profiles, what your political bent is. I mean, it's amazing how much information we all have out there.
So, last thing I would suggest is when you leave, pull up on YouTube ethical hacker. Right, and type in ethical hacker on YouTube, and you'll get 100 hits on videos of how they're spoofing and how they're how they're getting access to it will be very educational. I was at an event in Dallas a couple of weeks ago where we had brought in an ex-CIA guy who now runs his own ethical hacking company. And he literally, as we sat there, one spoofed one of our emails while we were having lunch. And he also showed data that he had pulled a couple of years ago of the highest net worth folks and the amount of detail and literally bank accounts, and I mean, it's really crazy. So I think a way to educate yourself is literally via YouTube. Just pull up ethical hacking and you'll get a myriad of bits on it.
Also, with your security password phrases, feel free to lie. Like, your mother's maiden name could be Purple Poop, and it's fine. Like, they don't really need that actual legitimate information. So get really creative with how you do your security questions and how you answer.
And I shouldn't put my password on my laptop, like a little.
Sticky note.
No. Okay. So does anybody have questions that you want to ask the panel? Yes, Gary.
So how secure are like the password wallets, like Splash ID and others that store all your passwords, but those passwords are up in the cloud somewhere? How secure are those?
Well, like everything, they're secure up until they're not. So, I mean, it is a good best practice to have something like that, because you're looking at the chain of encryption, and what they're really good at doing is randomizing that and keeping track of it, and they're assigning unique passwords to each of the individuals. So as long as you are consistent about maintaining good hygiene as far as your password management, regularly actually changing the password to your root access to that, you're probably going to be okay.
Get a randomizer on that, because don't put in, password 123, or 321, word sap. Don't do that stuff. Make sure.
Guess that. That's
So those, but they're, again, like he was saying, now you've got 2 layers of stuff versus how many of us have Excel files with all their user IDs and passwords on it, right? That's what a lot of people do. They've just got a whole thing. Now a lot of people will actually name the thing password file versus something else. So if you can get at least one more layer of encryption in there, once they get past your other stuff, then you've got one more with your wallet.
And I think encryption is the key, right? Those apps will encrypt that data. It's just like majority of our laptops, right? Well, for large corporations anyway. If you were to steal my laptop and did not have my password, you would try a couple of different times, and then it locks my PC down. There's nothing that you can get into. All the data is encrypted, and then we go a further step that will actually sweep it clean. So I think that we kid ourselves if we say, hey, we put it in this vault, password vault, and we're good. But truth is, it is encrypted data once it's placed there, and they're very secure. Not 100%, but those types of applications are very secure.
Tim, is there a
oh no, because I can't hear you.
Is there, I know a lot of softwares are requiring you to change your password with a certain frequency. Is there a policy that you guys are establishing with the insurance policies that says we are requiring for passwords to be changed every 30 days, 60, 90?
Not everybody is doing it, but again, it gets back to the plan that you have in place. We recommend that people change their password every 90 days at a minimum. There are actually protocols in place by the underwriters that we place cyber liability insurance with that says you have to meet minimum requirements of encryption on the front end. You just can't have Norton, just semantics, the $60 a year subscription for 6 users. You've got to have, or you have 128-bit encryption. Some people won't even do that anymore, depending on the number of records. They want 256. it gets pretty nutty, and they'll actually test your system before they actually will underwrite the account to prove that you guys have in place what you lied about on the application. Because, clients lie all the time, right? So, yeah, I mean, best practice is 90 days, because if you're doing every 30 to 60, people are forgetting, then you're calling your IT department, what's my password again? I do it myself. I never change the password on a Friday because I've forgotten it by Monday. It's just true. IT sends me a note, your password's expiring in 3 days. Great, it's Wednesday. Well, it'll change on Monday because I forget it, right? And then you got to call and wait 20 minutes to get the password guy at IT to give you a new one, which is a zoo. But yeah, 90 days is a minimum for us that we tell people to change their passwords.
Any other question? Pass that. Oh, he's got one.
Hey Tim, is there any changes to insurance? Is there any changes to insurance related to CCPA? California Consumer Privacy Act?
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of that. It's actually gonna get even more nutty than the California one. They're gonna go to the European standard, and that's what a lot of the underwriters are writing out to, is the European standard, because California has got a couple nuances that are different from the European standard, but the European standard is gonna be much more rigid for a nationwide basis for us here in the U.S. and North America. But the California one mostly mirrors that European standard, and the underwriters are just getting up to speed on that, because it doesn't take full implementation until next summer, I believe, right? Or it's either 1/1 or whenever.
It goes into January.
1/1, yeah. Yeah, it gets enforced in July. They're starting to review that now, and you'll start to see people giving pushback from the underwriting community to say, hey, you need to be updated on this, yes.
Does this apply to all businesses or a particular segment in California?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's a lot of based on your websites and things like that. It's like the new ADA law that your website now has to be ADA compliant on top of it. It is coming into everybody.
It affects any organization that has revenue greater than $25 million, is for profit, or buys and sells 50,000 names and addresses.
Any other questions?
My question for the non-enterprise businesses, how much redundancy is enough?
So it's not necessarily a case of the more the merrier, but it's about having a very engaging strategy. So make sure that you're at least duplicating your information at least one place off-site and external to your organization. So cloud backup, really is the way to go there. But there's also not just a matter of backup, but also having a recovery plan in place. Making sure that if you are going to have a backup strategy, that you've got versioning in place, and that you're able to go back into a period of time if somebody has managed to penetrate and put any kind of ransomware. If you're doing daily backups or every 6 hours, then it's very possible that they could have had that for 30 days. So making sure that you're able to go back in time, and then you've got enough length to be able to go back to wherever that clean point for your data restore was, but then also having something local that you can take up and just fire up immediately is really helpful.
How often is realistic for backup?
Let me add to everything you said is correct. So if I were to answer a small business on that, my first question is, what is your tolerance for downtime? And then a lot of owners will say 0. And I said, well, your backup solution is going to be this much cost. And they say, oh no, but I can tolerate 1 hour. I can tolerate 4 hours. I can tolerate 1 day, right? So those different parameters will dictate the amount of backups, the amount of versions, and the amount of recovery, and how fast is the recovery. There's concept called RPO, recovery point objective, right? How fast you can recover and all those things. So based on the budget, and there are solutions out there to meet everybody's budget.
That's the answer.
Question is on the Office 365, so more on the multi-factor authentication. It's a challenge to put the MFA and keep logging in, because everything is online, so you have multiple devices, multiple browsers, multiple sessions. It's just a hassle. So we turned on multi-factor authentication and turned it off because it was just impossible to deal with. Any feedback on that?
We can talk about, well, so MFA is required for all our clients. No ifs, ands, or buts. And it's under there on Office 365. Initial during the setup, there are some challenges that you're talking about, but users typically in an organization are not jumping around going to everybody else's machine to do their work. They usually assign their primary workstation. So once their account is properly MFA, they're logging in as themselves, they're using their same browser or whatever. There's cache in there that will keep them logged in, and they can go into those cloud applications, and they don't have to put in the MFA constantly all day long. And you shouldn't have to do that.
And as Roberto said, once it's properly architected, then you can actually have a single sign-on type of an application running in the background that allows you to get into all your various applications without having to reset everything.
At Sienna, I 3 or 4 years ago, if I was going between 2 or 3 applications, it was at least three separate logins, right? So again, once it's Office 365 is correctly architected, I would suggest a third party. We use RSA that authenticates, and then as a matter of fact, the most recent update where I used to have to go and find the key that changed every 60 seconds. Now there's a push notification that actually I click to log in. It pushes a notification to me via the app. It says, "Are you trying to log in?" I say yes, and then it's the single login for all of our different applications. So, third party is definitely the way to go with multiple logins.
Thank you. Another question? Pass the microphone over. Thank you.
More commercial real estate as commercial real estate brokers, so we're representing smaller clients, retail across here, and then smaller, less sophisticated companies maybe who don't have all the systems in place, but more startups are moving. So we often get asked how soon they can go out and survey how soon they can go out and survey as a project building. So if we're not, I guess, building land or something, fiber or cable and all this stuff gets connected. So how soon on the tenant side should we get somebody involved in survey the site and advise them on that, whether it's relocation or expansion? And on the landlord side, we ask a lot of landlords want to upgrade or kind of review their current building providers.
So it sounds to me like you're asking about physical security for site locations, is that correct? Yeah, I mean, the earlier in the process that you can get a provider out there to really evaluate that, there are a lot of different options for what we call access control. So you've got biometric scanners, you've got card readers, you've got RFID, there's a number of different technologies that are out there. But really it is critical to have somebody come out and do a physical inspection and actually look for what those weak points are. There's a gentleman that's affiliated with this organization called ISSA here, Information Security Association, and they do the physical penetration testing. And so they'll come into your office and they'll actually look for what are those physical points, and can they walk out with any of your data? So they'll test doors and do those kinds of things. So it definitely is good to get a third-party security company to come out and review whatever vendor solutions you actually have in place.
Any other question? None? Okay. Well, there's one question that I did want to ask though still is the internet providers and the ISPs, do they automatically offer security to the public when you're using it?
No. Depends on the provider. So there are different tiers of providers. I'll probably pass it over here to Seattle to talk about this a little bit further. So he mentioned layer 1 security. That's basically they've got a protected private network that they've encrypted throughout the entire entire infrastructure, which is really a top tier best practice and what people should be looking at. Unfortunately, for small businesses, cost can be an issue. So you might go with Spectrum and your local provider because it's a pretty cheap internet. That is going to come with associated risks. You're not going to be protecting your network and your traffic.
My answer is yes. We can debate this later.
Why is that?
What the example would be, you get wave service or an Ethernet service or direct internet access from our friends at Crown There's an SLA or a service level agreement that comes with that, the purchase of that service that says, here are the things that we are responsible for. Obviously, security and protection of that network and the transport of that information is included in that SLA. What Crown would not be responsible for is that human interface, that piece, PC to PC, or inter-office traffic. Once that traffic hits the public internet or your private dedicated network, 100% they are responsible. And there are multiple layers, depending on the service that you're buying, whether it's optical layer 1, Ethernet layer 2, or routed layer 3, there are layers of security that are involved. And then the physical security, I kept looking at Chris when we were talking about building access, and I know he's got some thoughts around that. I mentioned going into a data center, right? They're like Fort Knox. It's they're big scary guys out front, and you're not going to get in physically into that address, and then to hack in is extremely difficult as well. But from the carrier's perspective, they're deploying carrier grade information or carrier grade electronics and network infrastructure that is not your typical enterprise. Hey, I'm going to go buy a Wi-Fi router off of the shelf at Best Buy. The carrier grade equipment comes with a layer of protection and security just based on that fact. So I'll defer to Chris.
So far, most we've been talking about is perimeter security as well as inside infrastructure security. Another security concern we have not covered today would be distributed denial of service attacks. DDoS. This is something that's happening outside your organization. And what DDoS is that think about someone giving you a phone call, 1,000 people calling your phone all at once, or 1 million people calling your phone all at once. Nobody can get through because all the invites or requests calls to be answered are just taking up all that bandwidth. That can also bring an organization to its knees. So when you're talking to a service provider, such as Crown Castle, the DDoS is something we can add to your service profile. That's another security concern. So you may have great practice from your door in. There's still security threats outside your door that you need to be aware of.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right, so as we wrap up and you're all enjoying your lunches, I wanted to first thank Terrace by McSmith's for hosting us. And if you've not been here for their lunch or their dinner, I'm telling you, it's insanely delicious. So visit them at other times as well. And then I wanted to end by doing something I should have done at the beginning, which is your introductions. So we had Cedric gave a very general one, but I wanted them to take an opportunity, a minute or so, to just talk a little bit more about what they each do. And then we'll wrap up the event. You can finish your lunch and talk amongst yourselves as we end the event.
You bet. So my name is Tim Kolotz, and I'm with Hub International Insurance Services. We are a international, national-sized brokerage house based out of Chicago with our local headquarters both here in Riverside and Newport Beach. I'm based in the Newport Beach office. We do everything on the insurance side, but my focus is commercial insurance, so anything dedicated to the business proper. I am on the cyber liability team. I also am on the cannabis team, but I do anything that's related to the business proper, anything from cyber liability directors and officers to property casualty insurance.
I knew you were on the cannabis team.
No, that was really random. It's like, I'm on the cybersecurity and the cannabis team.
What you don't realize is these cannabis guys, as we all know, California's #1 cash crop for the past 40 years has been cannabis. What you don't realize is the infrastructure into some of these higher end cannabis guys, the level of detail that these guys have from a network architecture on how to turn the lights on, how to turn the lights off, when things get watered. Are they doing hydroponic? Are they doing regular grass grow? How are they avoiding the cops when they fly over? The level that these guys have is typically far superior to your standard business practice, especially up in the Central Valley and up in Humboldt County. It's unreal at the level that we have. And our cannabis practice has over 500 cannabis customers just here in the state of California. We also do some very large ones that are, traded on the Canadian Stock Exchange. You'll see their M&M truck. I won't name them by name, but you'll see those guys. It's ridiculous at the level of sophistication these guys have, and they're getting hacked all the time now because even though it is a cash crop, if their competitor can knock out their system, now their grow is now a third the volume, and now that my competitor is now growing at a much better rate.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You just made a bunch of friends. My name is Kerry Springer, Business Development Director at Sienna. 12 years at Sienna now, so it's been a nice, long, enjoyable ride. What Sienna is the technology partner with Crown Castle. I will refer to Cedric's Christmas light. I was the one that got the good chuckle out of that. So the example is that row of Christmas lights, that connectivity or the wire between the two, basically we're the ones that are pushing the information from one light to the other. So Crown owns the infrastructure. They also own the equipment that they purchase from us, but we enable the transport of the data across the network. So when you buy a managed service from Crown Castle, like I said, whether it's carrier Ethernet or waves or direct internet access, whatever it may be, very difficult to touch the Crown Castle network without riding across Sienna gear. So I'm here with my counterparts, Cedric, Christopher, Steve, and Ken. If you have any network questions, please grab us after you eat.
So my name is Brian Anderson. I am the founder of a company called Telecomprehensive Solutions. We focus on providing fractional CIO and CTO services to small and mid-sized enterprises, really focusing on consulting around what is your technology strategy and how can we scale you forward and grow, and figuring out what those gaps are, and then how do we actually bring in and layer and apply technology to meet your business objectives. So that's what we do.
My name is Ron Wong, and I'm with Atomic Technology Solutions, and we provide IT managed services for small, medium businesses. And one of the things that we do is we help business owners catch bad employees. There's one every day, every minute. Unfortunately, and the tools to catch them or monitor or protect the owner are not expensive. They're not as expensive as what they used to be. And with one or two other quick notes is, what do you guys think are the 5 basic necessities of human life? I just learned this yesterday. What do you guys think they are? Air, water, food, love, what was it? Shelter, sleep, And here's the fifth funny one. What do you think it is?
Significance.
Cybersecurity.
That's good.
Cybersecurity.
Not cybersecurity, but that's cyber protection. And so the cliche of it's not a matter of whether you will be hacked, it's when you will be hacked. And so when that happens, you need to have the policies, the response, put procedures in place, the PR campaign in place and ready, how to deal with it from a legal standpoint, logistically and operationally. And of course, the most important thing that we're trying to have everybody learn to do in the Wild West is insurance, cyber insurance. Very, very important to have. And that goes back to basically what the other gentleman asked is, what do we do basically in IT? Backup, 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 backup.